Yeah. All right. So like I said, I'm going to kind of start on a kind of on an assumption base. What do we think the governor is going to be discussing tonight?
10 years ago, Louisiana's budget was $16.5 billion. Today it's $25 billion. That's a 40% increase over a period of time when the economy, measured by GDP, has only grown 25%. Now we're running budget deficits. Here's why. Each year for the last 7 years, our legislature, at the suggestion of the then governor, has spent more money than it took in. It papered over the problem by raiding every state savings account and using accounting tricks. Those savings accounts are depleted, and so now we have a budget deficit. Governor Edwards is going to propose that we balance that budget and cure the deficit by implementing the largest tax increase in the history of the state. Basically, what he is saying to Louisiana businesses and Louisiana families is that he wants them to cut their budgets so Louisiana state government doesn't have to cut its budget. He is proposing to raise personal income taxes, sales taxes, corporate income taxes, corporate franchise taxes, cigarette taxes, liquor taxes, inventory taxes, business utility taxes, telephone taxes, a new internet tax, and some taxes that I probably have forgotten. It won't work. Our problem is on the spending side. I do not care how high they raise revenue. As long as we spend more than we take in, we're going to run deficits. I've told the governor, this is my opinion, but I believe I'm right, that we don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. I have sent to him and I copied the legislature, over 400 different suggestions about how we can lower our costs without hurting anybody. I sent him a copy of the Streamlining Government report from 5 years ago. I sent him a copy of the Secure report done by business people in 1995. I sent him a copy of the Cut the Fat report done in 2001. I'll mention a couple of the things that I think we could do. Number one, we have $400 million tied up in 156 statutory dedications. We need to unlock that money and make the programs that it funds compete with higher education and health care and our other priorities for funding. Number two, we have 19,000 consultants on the payroll. They charge too much and we don't need all of them. Number three, 22% of all of our managers, according to the legislative auditor, in state government manage one employee. We have way too many expensive generals and not enough foot soldiers. Number four, in our Medicaid program, 3% of our 1.4 million Medicaid patients spend 43% of the money. We need to find out why. Number five, we need to start saying no, as the law allows us to do, to those Medicaid patients who go to very expensive emergency rooms to be treated for acne, to get a pregnancy test, to see if they need glasses, to talk to somebody about how to lose weight. Now, we will treat them, but we do not have to and should not treat them in an emergency room because it costs taxpayers 5 times more the money. And finally, according to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services in D.C., which regulates Medicaid nationwide, 10% of the $9 billion we spend in Louisiana each year on Medicaid is attributable to fraud. That's $900 million a year. Even if CMS is half right, that's $450 million a year. We need to embed about 15 auditors from the Legislative Auditor's Office and the Department of Health and Hospitals, tell them to root out this fraud and prosecute the perpetrators to the full extent of the law. Now, in about 3 minutes, I've given you 6 ideas out of the 400 that I think conservatively will save between $500 million and $1 billion. And we haven't raised taxes 1 penny. Until we get our spending under control, and we don't have it under control, we're not going to solve this problem. In fact, we'll make it worse. the tax increases that Governor Edwards is proposing will tank this economy. And I don't know how he expects the 10,000 men and women out there who just lost their job in the oil and gas business to pay more in sales taxes and personal income taxes. You can't get blood out of a turnip, but if you're not careful, you'll kill the turnip.
Right. I mean, you pretty much almost answered all my follow-up questions from that. Another thing I was going to ask you was, I mean, you kind of touched on it, saying we have more of a spending problem than a revenue problem, and then also finding kind of where the holes are and where the fraud is and that kind of stuff, and getting those auditors to come in and kind of go through our current system. Is that stuff that's kind of been accumulating over a long amount of time? And
yes,
it's kind of time to clean house?
Yes, and let me tell you something else. Look, we have a budget problem. I've never known us when we didn't have a budget problem. It's a serious problem. But we need to stop all the drama and stop all the hysterics. You know, we're not going to close down LSU. We're not going to throw people out of hospitals. Now, I understand politics. I get it. When you're trying to pass a tax increase, you want to scare people. But enough is enough. Now, I've looked at their numbers, and they say, well, the bottom over the next 5 months is going to fall out of our revenue base. Maybe they're right, but I'll tell you this: I just got in the numbers for January. Our revenue improved 3%. So I think there's just a lot of gamesmanship here. You know, the world's going to spin off its axis if we don't impose on our people the largest tax increase in the history of the state. I just think everybody needs to calm down. Stop the drama, stop the hysterics, and let's have a rational, reasoned discussion of how we can lower our costs while still being able to deliver a decent product. I know we can save $1 billion and probably more, and after we do that and gain a little confidence with the taxpayers, at that point, we can talk about the tax code and maybe try to put together a tax code that looks like somebody designed the dadgum thing on purpose.
Right. Anything else you want to add that you haven't touched on? I know you said that it could clean up about $1 billion or so of that.
I think we can do better. And look, I'm just speaking for me personally, but I can tell you, I am not going to support any taxes, none, zero, nada, until they get serious about trying to control our spending, because they haven't done it. And those that say, well, it can't be done, they're wrong. It can be done. You know why? Because I watch Louisiana families and Louisiana businesses do it every single day. And now it's state government's turn.
Good. All right. Well, thank you so much for meeting and talking with us.
Glad to.
And